Induction. Induction, deduction, abduction. Yeah. Are we short there? Has anyone got, are we short one? An induction one? Oh, bugger, there should be enough. We got one? Has anyone got two accidentally? One for Chris, yeah. Anyone got two accidentally? Is there two there? Are we short one? Do you still need one? Because I've got one here, but I need it. The staple caught her out. I accidentally stapled a single piece of paper and everyone thinks there should be two. It's the mess. We had a conversation, I remember, in the last module about induction and deduction. And I'd thought about this a lot. And I suddenly thought, well, actually, in terms of a 100-day thing, or in terms of a strategy, in terms of, especially in the mess, or to get you into the mess, but to keep you in the mess, is the idea that probably at any other level and any other type of research approach, we've been taught, but without realising it, that deduction is the thing. Deduction is the king of things. And they're not, and so when I talk about induction, abduction and deduction, we're not necessarily talking about things being opposites or whatnot, but we are talking about stuff that seems to have a type of value in a university education up until level 7. And up until level 7, deduction is the thing you did. What do we mean by deduction? It's this idea that you start off with a statement and then you work through it logically and rationally until it comes to a conclusion that's indisputably linked to your hypothesis or your statement of start, your intent. So that's roughly what deduction is, isn't it? So I'm going to start off and I'm going to go blah, 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 and you get to your 100-day over and you go, then you see the logical links, and therefore, and therefore, and therefore, and therefore, and therefore, yes, I am going to the ball. Now, that's absolutely brilliant in natural sciences, and we sort of know that's how that works. And it's also brilliant if you're trying to demonstrate you understand the principles of positivism, red science. So that's our red stuff. That's brilliant. Now, the difficulty we have now in the postmodern social sciences, or should I say even the contemporary social sciences, is that deduction just about hanging in there in lots of ways in natural sciences, but it really is it's being kicked a bit in the social sciences. And because you're mostly social scientists, it means deduction might make you feel good, might make you feel as though everything's tidy and that you're vacuuming. Shake hand back and put the freshness back. You know the 70s, that old Lindsay Wagner. Google it. Google Lindsay, actually, put Lindsay Wagner, I'm going to do that when I get in. You can't really do that deductive stuff with certainty, because somewhere along the line you're going to undermine your own argument. Yeah, in your 100 days. Well, you should do, because you can't keep everything in control. You know this because you've done the master's stuff. You can't account for every variable. You can't do this. You can't, your measurement scheme. You can get close, and there's no doubt. And if you multivariate a lot of your analysis, we can get close, and you can say with certainties and whatnot. So I'm not dismissing it. But at the same time, there is another issue. It's certain issues of involvement, reflexivity and enjoyment. And this is a different level now. It's longer, it's harder, you're more alone. No one's going to understand you, especially yourself and your family. And so you're in the middle of this mess now. And in the old days, you could have just picked up a copy of Pilot and Ungler and just sort of copied out it, and you got yourself a master. But you can't now at level 8. At level 8, you've got to get to the ball, and you're here, and you've got to go, I've contributed this. But if you've just gone and done this, you've probably undermined yourself by the time you get. So you can't be deductive. So you're better off as a strategy now in your 100 days, I think, just going, I understand the principles of deduction and they seem to work for certain stuff, but I am probably inductive or abductive. This means I am firmly involved in trying to come to some sort of conclusion which is probable and makes for good statement. That's really where you're at. And it's not a bad strategy. So I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. Never substitute effort on literature search that should be wisely spent on your write-up and date and in the mess in the analysis. Okay. So deduction, as I've just said, is the logical positivist elixir and relates to deducing the truth. So you can see where this starts to fit with that Todorov stuff, it starts to fit with Barthes, it starts to fit with other stuff. I think you shouldn't ever start thinking that you're going to come to a truth. I think you're going to get through the mess, vacuum, oh, don't know what I've done, oh, make some order, I've made some order. What I did, I made some order. I came up with an appearance of truth, or I questioned the appearance of truth with something. That's where I think you should be at. So, usually, and it's a deducing truth, i.e. deduction, through testing relationships between stuff and variables. The belief in deduction is what drove the Renaissance and the progress of science. So you can see it's not unfounded, and it does work. It gave my dad some extra years of life. And it does this, that and the other. It does work. And I've written here, when Leonardo and his chums were busy building helicopters and getting the party going, he was in fact starting a deductive chain reaction. And that's how I like to think of deduction. It's a sort of reaction. Induction, though, by its very relationship to deduction, is seen as a poorer relation. And we learnt this last time. Because theoretically, it can't prove much. And your argument will be, well, I'm not trying to prove. And that's, well, what's the point then? Well, what's the point in having more truth than non-truth? So it starts getting a bit metaphysical then, as we learnt with what makes, in order to understand the fantastical, you have to understand what fantastical isn't. And it goes back to that sort of stuff we started looking at there. Either way. And it's pseudo-scientific excuse for discovering wishy-washy metaphysical patterns in data not worth the research budget. And that's what you're going to sort of be up against. But, as I said before, I think you should claim to be inductive and be happy and okay with it, as well as in the mess, because it will engage you more in your work, and it really will give you your work value. If you get right to the end here, as I've seen a lot, well, I've seen a lot of exams I've marked recently, actually, at doctoral level, and you've done interviews with 23 families, and then you've tried to demonstrate that the families that had CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, and the families that had Freudian therapy of psychoanalytical persuasion, and that the one's better than the other, and you've seen 23 families, and you've deduced and proved that there is a truth and one's better than the other, or there's certain circumstances, I'm going to call you out on it. Because what you've demonstrated, I suspect, is that you don't know much about science and the process you've just been through, else you wouldn't have done it. That's near enough where I'm at. Now I understand that it might seem like a clever thing to do because what you've done is a comparison study, a deductive, and you've tried to be scientific. Don't! Would be my bit. And what enjoyment have you got? You've learned to do some statistics. That's here in the inductive middle. It might not be uncomfortable because everyone's going to be going, well, it's not proper science, but at least you're in it and it's yours. You are inductive practitioners. You're social scientists. You can assume some stuff and you can explore some stuff. You can't prove any stuff. It's really where you're at. So if you can just, and so my point of this session is, in this 100-day experiment, get out of your head any idea that you're going to prove something. And then be mindful not to get drawn into battles of objectivity, because that's what you're going to get brought into, because your examiners, quite rightly so, they're going to test that you've got good reason for why you're not bothered about proving stuff. Your first position, of course, is because you can't. You're a one-man, woman research machine with no research budget, with no lab facilities, with no... You've just gone out, but what you have got is your ability to forge connection and make order in the mess. I've written here, allow yourself to do something with a steady realisation. I think that's the key, isn't it? I think induction can allow you to do something with a steady realisation because you are the realisation. Without you, the contribution doesn't occur. In deduction, the contribution's there to be discovered, but without you, steady realisation. Now, I could waffle on and read through this, but you can read this yourself, can't you, really? And I've got another handout on, and I might do another session on deduction and induction in a few months' time, so I'll stick that up as well, only because I've got some more ideas on that. But for now, let's just sum up. As we talked about mess and we talked about all these pinch points and all this over the last few days, for this session, you are inductive, and there's good reason for that. You are the realisation. You get to day 70 in the 100-day thing, and you go, I need to do order, and you putting your mess into order is induction. If you've got to day 70 and you've tried to do deduction, you know exactly why you're at day 70 and what you've done and why you've done it and where you're going to be. You're going to know what you've done if you're doing deduction, and you're going to know how to get there. Which brings to mind, a learned colleague of mine mentioned this to me, who you've actually met, Anita. So she said, at level 8, if you already know, because we're doing deduction, what it is you're going to have done, you haven't contributed. And I suppose that's the sort of issue I've been moaning about all the time. Unless you've made enough mess, unless you've suffered it reflexively, unless you've realised it, unless you've got to day 70 and made order and forged something, and then turned around, written something fantastic, you've got to remember from consolidation bit, for that last 30%, maybe you've done absolute crap here. You've done absolute crap. Your data's boring, your data doesn't work, it's all been a mess, it's been a total shambles. It's been everything me and Angela know about. Guess what? We get to day 70 and you go, well, I'm going to make order of this. Okay. It was absolute shambles. It was absolute mess. This, that and the other. Don't anyone else ever try this. Thank you very much. I've just contributed in the last 30, just through the write-up. It's not the data or its collection, or it's what you do with it. That's where you're going to... Yes, so that's why we're inductive, that's why we're abductive, and that's about all I've got to say on that. So there. Yeah, actually that is about all I've got to say on that, thank you. What I'll do, I'll shove these up. Any thoughts though? Hold on, what shall I call this? Now, Amy just said induction. And you know what? He's so right. I'm going to call this induction.